Now, the Democratic Party used to represent something wonderful, voters. And they were actually progressives, and they got a lot of things done. That is not a myth. There's this idea that, well, Democrats are weak and they were always ineffectual. Not remotely true. FDR was a Democrat. He gave us Social Security. Later, we wound up getting Medicare, Medicaid, and all these wonderful things, all brought to you by strong progressives, including Lyndon Johnson, at least on the social front, including the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, all brought to you by strong progressives. And it wasn't just presidents or politicians. There were great activists like Martin Luther King, who was a very strong progressive and also got us the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act, but not just on social issues, but also on economic issues. There was Ralph Nader. Remember, Ralph Nader saved millions of lives by getting seatbelts in the cars, and he had to fight giant multinational corporations to do that, but he won. Isn't that amazing? Back when you could actually beat multinational corporations. But to give you a sense of how strong the Democratic Party and progressives used to be in this country, back during Nixon's administration, Nixon was so intimidated by progressives like Ralph Nader that he's the one who started the Environmental Protection Agency and OSHA to protect workers in America. Progressives were so strong, we got Nixon to start the EPA and OSHA. So don't tell me it isn't possible for there to be strong Democrats. I know there are. But what wound up happening to the Democratic Party? Well, there was a hostile takeover. So multinational corporations decided, hey, you know what? We need the Supreme Court on our side. And they had a guy named Lewis Powell write a memo about how they could take over the Supreme Court. And lo and behold, Richard Nixon, in his revenge, put Lewis Powell on the Supreme Court. And what did Powell do? He was the deciding vote in 2 Supreme Court cases that allowed for corporations to put money into politics. And lo and behold, corporations took over the Republican Party, of course, immediately, who were ready for that takeover. That takeover was not hostile. And then they took over the Democratic Party. And I asked Ralph Nader, I said, you're running roughshod. You're getting Nixon to do whatever you want. What happened? He said, we ran into a brick wall. Once a congressman by the name of Tony Coelho, but it really could have been any of them, told the rest of the Democrats, hey, you know what? You can take corporate cash just like the Republicans. It's now legal. And once that happened, the Democratic Party slowly became the establishment Democrats, the corporate Democrats that you know now. Well, that has led to disaster and ruin. And the reason for it is actually quite simple. Let me quote you the Barney Frank rule. And this is a rule that, that Barney Frank said to one of our reporters, Jordan Chen, in the middle of this election season. He said, what do you want us to do? Not take any of the banker money? Well, isn't it better that we take 20% of the banker money? And my resounding answer to Barney Frank is, no, it is not better. Because if you only take 20% of the banker money and the big donor money and the multinational corporation money, you set yourself up as the perpetual losing team. You are the Washington Generals to the Harlem Globetrotters. You have agreed to and take part in a system where you are paid to lose. If you base all the campaigns on money and the other guys take more corporate money than you do and you agree to that system, why would you do that? Of course that leads to failure and ruin, and we are in ruin. So I'm going to tell you how we're going to take the Democratic Party back. But to give you one more sense of how bad it is right now, Donald Trump, the most unpopular person to ever run for president in the history of the United States of America, defeated Hillary Clinton, the standard bearer for the establishment Democrats, for the corporate Democrats. They were so proud of her. They were so sure that she was going to win. And she lost to the most unpopular person. Do you know that Donald Trump had an unpopularity rating of 60% on the day of the election? 60% disapproved in the country, but he won anyway. That gives you some sense of what a disaster the Democratic Party has become. Of course, they lost the House, they lost the Senate. They couldn't fill a Supreme Court vacancy that was sitting there open for about a year. But to me, the most devastating stat is they have lost 69 out of the 99 state legislatures. The Republicans hold 70% of the legislatures across the country at the state level. Democratic Party has a demographic advantage, and it has an advantage on almost every policy issue there is, yet they have somehow managed to lose 70% of the state legislatures and every branch of government. Can you describe incompetence that is greater than that? I think they have maxed out on incompetence. So that is why we must choose a new path. And that is what we embark upon today. What we need to do is take over the Democratic Party. And as Martin Luther King said when he did the Civil Rights Movement, he said he was doing it not just to help African Americans, but to save the soul of America. Here we're going to try to save the soul of the Democratic Party by boarding the Democratic Party ship and taking it over. How are we going to do that? We're going to run strong progressives. And we are launching today something that will represent not the donors, not the multinational corporations, but just us. So this is a perfectly fine hashtag to use, and I was thinking of using it when we were initially coming up with this idea. And I looked at it, and I was like, just us, just us. Perhaps what we're really seeking is justice. We want you to represent just us, not your donors. Just the voters, not your donors. So, from now on, there will be a new wing of the Democratic Party, and it will be the Justice Democrats. We will seek social justice, economic justice, racial justice, and plain old justice for the American worker. If you are aggrieved, you are right. When the media tells you, oh, no, the status quo is wonderful, it's not true. When the establishment tells you everything is going fine, it's not true, and you know it. You know why? Your productivity has been sky high. You, the American worker, have not erred. You have done the right things. But your wages have been stagnant since right around 1980, when the corporations took over the Democratic Party and there was no longer any resistance to their platform. And what has happened since then? Minimum wages stagnated. In fact, all the wages have stagnated. That is not an accident, because multinational corporations did, in fact, rig the system by buying politicians, including Democrats. We're going to upend that. We're going to change that. So who are we? Well, yes, of course, the TYT Network is involved. That's why I'm here. One of the co-founders of the Just Democrats and one of the writers of the platform was Kyle Kulinski, host of Secular Talk. But there is a whole other component. A significant portion of Bernie Sanders' team that ran that wonderful campaign is now with the Justice Democrats. So we have got two senior advisors, including the folks who organized a lot of the states, and their team on the side of the Justice Democrats. So Zach Exley is on our board, Kyle's on our board, I'm on the board, but also Sykot is a person who was involved in organizing on the technology front, and he is going to be our executive director, okay? So I think that we are onto something that is going to be amazing, but what we need is your help. Now, if this is going to work, it can't be just people from Bernie's team and TYT and we think this is an important and interesting idea. You've got to like the idea, and you have to propel it forward. So there's a new website that will give you all the directions on what to do, but I need you to go there to do three specific things. First of all, the website is justicedemocrats.com. And the things that I need you to do is, first of all, just sign up. Just let us know that you agree, you want strong progressives, you want to primary corporate Democrats, you want progressives to take back the party, okay? So that's the easiest thing in the world. It takes you 5 seconds. The second thing I want you to do is, we are going to actually get nominees to run in congressional races from you guys. So this is not a top-down in that sense. You have to bring it from the bottom up. You have to participate. If you don't participate, well, this will fizzle. And then the pundits in the media will say, oh, we knew it. No. The voters do want corporate Democrats. The voters do love the establishment. They do want the status quo. You've got to prove them wrong. Now, you can nominate yourself, but what I would prefer is if you nominated someone else in your community who you think would be great at representing you and representing the entire community. Because the whole point of this is to get your representatives into the House of Representatives, to Senate as well. But they've been representing their owners all this time. Give me people who are not politicians, but who actually care to do the job right, who actually care to represent people. Go ahead and nominate people. It doesn't take that long. You just got to tell us who you are, who they are, and tell us a simple reason why they should be the nominee. Now, look, I suspect that we are going to get hundreds and hundreds of nominees, and we will look through those. And it doesn't mean that every person is going to get selected. We're going to have to go through a selection process. But at the end, I believe we will have wonderfully strong candidates, and they will be real Americans, and they will not be politicians in it for themselves. From time to time, if there's a young budding person who cared about politics who was already in, and we think there are strong Democrats who agree to the platform, great, then we will do that. By the way, on justicedemocrats.com, you'll also see the platform. You can click on that and read it for yourself. So point number one is none of our candidates are allowed to take corporate money or big donor money. That is, because if we do that, then we're just going to turn into the corporate Democrats. So we will not be going down that road. We will be going down the road of representing the people, being sourced by the people, and getting our funding from the people. And so finally, of course, there will also be a button to donate there, and you can make this campaign as strong as possible and participate in any way that you can. So I know what the establishment will say about this. They will say, well, now, Cenk, at a time where there's a Donald Trump, we all have to unify. The Democrats have to unify in fighting him. Now, unity sounds wonderful in theory, and I agree with unity. But am I going to unify behind them? The answer is hell no. If you tell me that we got to fight Donald Trump, I'll say, hey, I'm ready to lead that parade. If you say to me, we've got to fight against Donald Trump, but meanwhile, you have to agree to our corporate economic principles, no. The answer is a resounding no. We will not unify. We will not unify behind you. We will not unify behind your losing strategy. We will not unify behind Democrats who don't represent us and who aren't even progressive. So your answer to unity on that front is no. Now, if your claim is that you actually want unity, great, then unify behind us. Read the platform. It's perfectly progressive. If you claim to be a progressive, you'd be totally in favor of it. So great, you want unity, let's go, unify behind that platform. You see, they don't want unity. They want compliance. And our answer to that is hell no. So the second thing they'll do is they will beseech. Now, you can't do primaries against these wonderful Democrats that have been around for 30, 40 years serving the American people. Oh, yes, we can. We will primary them aggressively, very, very aggressively. So it doesn't mean you're going to primary every Democrat there is. There's a progressive caucus who's done a wonderful job. But the rest of you, you are on notice. So if you want to straighten up and you want to actually do progressive priorities, great. If you don't, we are going to come for you. And if you think it's the old days where you can be cute and, hey, I voted the right way on a couple of social issues, but whenever there was an economic issue, I sided with the corporations who are my donors, and I didn't side with my voters. Well, there's this thing called the internet. Welcome. We already know your voting record, and we see it day to day. And we already know who your donors are. The times when you can trick us because all there was old TV media are gone. So we do not agree, and we will primary you very, very aggressively. So come and join us. Show them where the Democratic Party should go. Let us retake that ship and head it in the right direction. justicedemocrats.com. Sign up, nominate people, donate, fight in however way you can. And either we will get those Democrats to line up and get real unity behind us, or we will defeat them. Because the last thing we're going to do is go into another presidential election and run a corporatist against a populist candidate. The last thing we're going to do is endanger the republic and the whole world by letting a clown like Donald Trump win because we picked a candidate that was pro-status quo, pro-establishments, pro-multinational corporations. The American people are not stupid. They saw through it. They said no matter how terrible Trump is, and by the way, 17% of his own voters thought he was not qualified for office, but they voted for him anyway because they were desperate for change. We're going to give America something they actually want. Change from the left. Almost every policy position we have in our platform is exactly what the American people say, according to the polling, not according to me, not according to the other founders, but according to the polling. So yes, we represent the mainstream of America. We're going to recapture one of those the current parties that exist right now, and then we're going to have a real fight with the likes of Trump and the Republican Party and the establishment. But the fight starts now, it starts today, and it starts with you. JusticeDemocrats.com. Fix the media, be the media. Come join us. TYTnetwork.com/join.